There's barely a story that we'll write that doesn't in some way involve numbers, and AP style is very specific when it comes to working with numbers. So let's take a look at the rules and take a look at the exceptions to those rules. So the basic rule of writing with numbers is anything that is under 10 is written out. So 0 through 9 you would write with letters, Z-E-R-O, N-I-N-E, etc. And then 10 and above you use numerals. So here's an example, he had 4 kids, she saw 10 ducks. You can see how that rule's in play. However, AP style has a lot of variations on that rule, and the exceptions involve things like ages, always numerals, money, always numerals, percentage, always numerals, room numbers, temperatures, weights, addresses. These things are always numerals no matter what the number might be. So here's some examples. It was about 2%, it was $4, it was in room 3, etc. You can see no matter the size of the number, we always use a numeral. Now the exception is if you begin a sentence with a number, then you spell it out. So even though we always use numerals for percents, if we use 2% of the population as the beginning of a sentence, we would write 2, T-W-O. The exception are years. So if you start it with a calendar year like 2015, that number would always stay a numeral. We use commas in our numbers if they're over four digits or over, so 1,500 eggplants. However, if it's an address like 7034 Valley Street, we would not use the comma. And then fractions, we write out fractions. So if it's 3/4, we're always going to write that out. But what we will do is numbers that are larger than 1 will have 1 and then a hyphen. It will have 1 and then a space and then the fraction. So it would be 1 space 3/4. We always use numbers when it relates to dollars and percents. So you'll notice here the book costs $8. If we have something that's cents, we use numerals, but we actually write out the word cents. And we always write out the word percent. We never use the percent sign. That has been an AP style rule since the beginning. Now for times, we always use numeral except twice, noon and midnight. We don't actually ever write the time as 12 o'clock, either AM or PM, although we do use AM and PM instead of o'clock. So if it's 8 in the morning, we write 8 AM. If it's 8 in the evening, it'd be 8 PM. And we use a colon to separate numbers, provided there are numbers for the minutes. If there are no minutes, then we don't put the colon and we don't put 00. We want to avoid doing redundancies like it's 9 AM in the morning or 10 PM at night. If it's 10 PM, we know by definition it's night. And then notice the order in which we put information. So things will start time, date, and place, and that order is always consistent. Now for addresses, as I mentioned, we always use numerals, but we have to look at the abbreviations related to things like avenue, boulevard, street. When we have a numbered address like 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, we would abbreviate avenue. Now if we just say that the president lives on Pennsylvania Avenue, we would not abbreviate avenue. This is only true of certain words. So avenue, boulevard, and street are the ones that we abbreviate. Things like alley, drive, road, circle, those things are always spelled out. We never abbreviate them, regardless of whether or not there's an address with them. Now, same way we use figures for the address, even if it's below 10. One exception would be is if someone lives on 4th Street, we would write that out. If they live on 12th Avenue, we would use the numbers 1, 2. So, as we note that here, we also use figures with 2 letters for 10 and above. So, example, we have 22nd Street. We abbreviate compass points. So, when we're indicating direction, we spell them out if there's no number, or we abbreviate them if there is. The examples here are it's 222 East 42nd Street. So, East in that case is abbreviated, as is street. Or if we said he lives on West 43rd Street, notice West is written out and street is written out. And we spell out interstate on the first reference, such as Interstate 81 or Interstate 71 like we have through Columbus. Second reference would be I-81. That'd be perfectly fine. Now dates get a little bit tricky because we have to pay attention to how we're abbreviating or utilizing the day of the week or the month itself. And so you'll notice that if something's taking place within 7 days, either before or after our current date, we use the days of the week. So if something were happening, if today was Wednesday and something was happening tomorrow, we would say that it was happening on Thursday. If it was Wednesday and something happened the day before, we would say it was on Tuesday. Note that we never use yesterday or tomorrow in our stories, although we can use today. But we have to think about how we abbreviate months. If something goes beyond a week, we're going to use the day of the month. And so we would say, instead of it being the following Tuesday or whatever, we would say July 22nd or September 5th or whatever it would involve. We're going to abbreviate these months if they have a date with them: January, February, August, September, October, November, and December. March, April, May, June, and July are always spelled out. We never abbreviate them, whether or not they have a date with them. And we also, for AP style, we don't use the day of the week with the month and the date. So if you're going to use the day of the week based on the rule that we've given you, you wouldn't use the day and the month. Same way, if you're going to use the day and the month, you don't use the day of the week. We spell out the month when we're using it alone or the year alone. So here we see he graduated in June 2001, or he graduated in September. Those would be spelled out. We don't have to include the year if it's this year. So if you're graduating this year, we would say you're graduating in June as opposed to giving the year. And I remind you again, the same thing, the time, date, and place. Start at 6:30 p.m. September 1st at the Ohio Union. So these are just some kind of basic ideas about dates as they relate to AP style and numbers related to AP style. There's a lot more, and you're going to want to bookmark these things in your AP style book so that you can start to refer back to them. Numbers are something that will really trip you up if you don't get a lot of practice in.